Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. His name is Dean Dutro. How are you, Dean?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. So let me give our listeners and viewers a little bit of your background, and then we can dive in. So Dean, he is the co-founder of Worth E-commerce, a 7+ figure e-commerce marketing agency that helps businesses of all sizes to dramatically grow their revenue by at least 30% with a life cycle, email marketing, and SMS marketing. Dean is an e-commerce, email marketing, and SMS expert, Klaviyo Platinum partner, and sits on Klaviyo's advisory council. He's also the founder of Email Growth Training and has helped over 600 stores grow leveraging email. He's also the host of the Relationship Commerce podcast that focuses on e-commerce founders, their stories, struggles, and strategies that are working on to scale now. Dean holds a degree in communication studies from the California State University of Long Beach. So you're literally like not too far from me. I'm in LA, so that's pretty awesome.
Nice.
So, I really like this, and definitely I can see you have a lot of great successes, and that's actually pretty awesome. Before we get into that, though, I want to know about more about you. Where did you grow up, and what was your upbringing like?
Yeah. So I didn't grow up in Long Beach, but went to college there and loved living in Long Beach. But actually, I grew up in this little town called Bend, Oregon, which at the time when I was living there was about 40,000 people, pretty rural, but a big like outdoor skiing, snowboarding, camping town. So grew up, in the outdoors, hiking and going on, camping trips with friends and things like that. And it was a great town. It still is. And it's grown dramatically though. But, when I was in high school, I actually ended up studying abroad in Italy for a year and got kind of my first taste of culture and stepping outside of Oregon, which wasn't very diverse and still kind of isn't very diverse, and got to explore Europe as a 17-year-old, which was eye-opening for me, and came back and ended up going to school at Long Beach State. And the reason I actually wanted to go there, it was the second most diverse city in the country, just behind Brooklyn at the time. Mm-hmm. And, I was really just craving like city life, diversity, like meeting different people. And that was a pretty wild experience, going from this little town of 40,000 people to a college that was 50,000 people. Wow. The school was bigger than my hometown. I always thought that was pretty wild.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely. So how did you manage to go abroad and study in Italy?
There's this teacher at Bend High he was Italian, and he just happened to teach Italian and I think French language school. His name was Mr. Bellavia, and he was just like this cigarette smoking, coffee drinking Italian teacher. And he was like, "You should go to Italy if you really want to learn it." Yeah. So I went, stayed with the family, like basically the entire family, the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents, the cousins. They all lived in the same apartment complex. Yeah. Wow. And just got fully immersed. I speak fluent Italian now. I've been speaking it for years, and I try and visit them every other year or so. In this little medieval town. Yeah, it's like my second home, which has been amazing.
That's pretty awesome, and I think that with that, there's kind of a lesson to be learned there. I think, the one thing I can take away from that is the fact that if you want to try something different, you want to do something different with your life, like you shouldn't look at any limitations and more think about, well, what are the possibilities, right? And so for you, it could have been that, hey, this sounds like a great idea. Why not just dream about it? Instead of just dreaming about it, let me actually have a memory about it and actually go out and do it. And I think that a lot of times people get hung up on that. And I always tell people that when I die, I know I'm gonna die with memories, not with dreams, right? Because a lot of people dream about being or doing whatever the case may be, and they never follow through.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So now, were there any as growing up, and whether it's in high school or even in college or things like that, were there any major challenges that you kind of went through in your life?
Yeah, I grew up in a family with kind of riddled with divorces, kind of throughout my parents and grandparents and things like that. And that was tough, and going back and forth between moms and dad and moving cities and things like that. And I think that definitely had an impact on me for a long time. And what's interesting is when I graduated from college, I was the first person in my family to go to college and graduate, get a degree. And most of my family, blue collar or military types, and ended up going to school. I remember I graduated. I had my grandpa and my step grandma, my grandma and my step grandpa, my mom and stepdad, my dad and stepmom, all in the same place. I was like, how cool is it that you could bring all these people together that had really hard relationships in the past to celebrate something moving forward in the family. That always stuck with me as something that was powerful, and how people can, forgive and change and grow.
That's actually very interesting. I think you kind of answered. Nevertheless, I want to ask, what was the biggest lesson you learned from that, and even see it now with what you're doing, and whether it's your personal or professional life, that really resonated with you based on that teaching, because there was definitely a lesson there.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is I think there's a few pieces. One is obviously forgiveness and kind of starting over and helping others. I think the second is, wherever you start in life, like you don't have to stay there, right? And that was a big sort of lesson for me, being the first to graduate. Was I didn't realize how important it was to them that happened, and how they had sacrificed, a lot of their lives to enable that. And for me to sort of benefit from that, I'm very grateful for that. And so I think the lesson is be grateful for those in your life that are helping to support you, because you don't really know the sacrifices they've made to get you there. I think that was really important to me.
Yeah, definitely. And I always tell people, it's not necessarily where you start, is where you're going to end up going, or what's going to be the end result. There's a kind of a similar to that, but there's a quote by Les Brown, and he talks about, somebody else's opinion about you does not define your future. And then you can kind of apply that, right? Just because you start in a particular place and you're in this particular environment or society, or people have different opinions about you, or, hey, you're not going to make it, you're not going to do this, whatever the case may be, that shouldn't be a defining reason for you to say, well, that's where I'm going to end up being in my life. And I know that sometimes we as people allow that to really define who we are. And I know for a fact, for me, many times I didn't think I was going to be able to do a lot of different things, like even just having my own book is like, people, they're like, you're not an author yet. I was allowing that to take that for me, right? Yeah. So now, obviously, you've started your own company. You've done all this stuff. I guess the one thing that I always like to ask people is, you go to college, you get an education, you have this idea, or maybe it might be your parents' idea of getting a degree and going to corporate America or doing the 9 to 5, right? At which point in your life did you say, you know what, I want to venture out into my own stuff versus working for somebody else, and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. The college years were awesome, right? It was for me, it was during the recession. So I was kind of shielded from all of that in a lot of ways. Still took on a bunch of debt that I'm still paying off, which is frustrating, but I think ultimately worth it. And when I graduated college, I went overseas for 3 months and just kind of was, post college. I was free, ready to go. And then I ended up road tripping from Oregon to Austin, Texas, and lived in Austin for a year. That was one of the worst years of my life. Austin was this booming town that I couldn't get a job in. Ended up working at a restaurant called Abel's on the Lake for $2.50 an hour plus tips. I was so broke. I was on food stamps for 6 months. And I just couldn't figure out what to do, right? Like I had all this education, all these things, but I wasn't in tech. Like I got a communications degree. So I felt like I wasted my time not learning technology, not learning how to code. I like convinced myself I was going to learn how to code and got on like Udemy. I was like, I'm not going to be a Python coder coding software. It's not what I'm going to do. And that was a rough year. So I actually ended up moving back to California after that to get a job at my dad's company. And what was interesting is my dad worked for this carpet company, and it was a huge carpet company based in Utah and Southern California. And they just happened to be in the same building as Tony Robbins. Right. And I'd kind of read Tony Robbins in college and in high school, listened to him. And I just thought that was an amazing thing to like love this author, love this speaker, and just be at a carpet company in the same building where Tony Robbins has an office in San Diego. I was like, this is insane. And I remember like at my job, I'd listen to like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and take notes while I was like supposed to be working. And I was making like $12 an hour in San Diego.
Yeah.
It was not, it was rough.
And San Diego is not a cheap town for sure.
No, no, not at all. And I was crashed with my dad, which was a blast. But anyways, I ended up getting a call from a recruiting company to actually come work as a recruiter. And they were going to pay me $43,000 a year in LA. And I was like, this is the most money I've ever thought about, or even like, I couldn't have imagined making that much money from going from $12 an hour to basically $22 an hour. I was blown. I was like, life has just changed. Like life is good. I could survive, moved to LA, work at this company, doing aviation sales. So I was like flying around to like different military bases and like manufacturing shops to like sell staffing services. I was like 23 or 24, talking to like these like, 50, 60-year-old like mechanics essentially who are ex-military. It's kind of wild. Loved that job. And then finally, after a couple of years of that, my best friend approached me from college and he's like, hey man, I'm starting this UX design agency. Do you want to join me and go travel the world? And I looked at him like point blank. We're at some bar in Portland. I was like, yeah, like, let's go.
Sure, let's do it.
Yeah. I was like, that sounds awesome. Like,
yeah.
And it was like, he showed me his numbers. He'd been freelancing. He's like, I made 200 grand in sales and 100 grand in profit. And, I think we could take this to the next level. I was like, all right, let's go. So I was about 24 or so when I took that leap, and it was through the help of a friend, I would say.
Wow. Talking about taking that leap, and I'm sure that was very scary. When you decided to say, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take the leap, I'm going to jump. Did you ever had any like regrets at that moment, or like what was going through your head that was probably trying to talk you back into getting back to corporate America or something to that? Like what was going through your head at that moment?
Yeah, it was an easy and a tough decision. It was a tough decision because the job at that time I had grown in that company. It was a $1 billion company corporation I was working for. It had all the growth opportunities. You could make 6 figures. You could make up 250 grand, like sweet gig. I was flying everywhere, had an expense account. I was like 25 or 24. Right. And I was like, this is pretty amazing. So to go from making just about 6 figures to no guarantees was pretty risky, but I didn't have expenses, I had a car that I could sell easily. I had a month-to-month apartment. And I thought that I could survive, I had some savings, I had like $5 grand of savings. It's like, I could live in Thailand for $5 grand, which is not true. It's way more expensive than you think.
Okay. Yeah.
It was like trick you. But it was something I always wanted to do, and my mom and grandmother, they were both entrepreneurs and small business owners for a long time. They got hit hard during the recession, but that's sort of always in me, is to start something. And, luckily through my friend, best friend and a business partner again, Ryan, he got me onto the other side.
Yeah. Going through that transition and just being able to do that. I mean, what's maybe one of your biggest lessons or advices that you can tell people? I mean, from that, I mean, obviously you were in your mid-20s, right? Probably didn't have a lot of responsibilities in terms of family and all these different things. What would be your biggest advice when taking such a risky, a leap as that?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you gotta ask yourself, are you willing to live with not making any money? Right. Cause that first business failed ultimately. After a year, we parted ways and I ended up living with my parents again at 26. And that was pretty rough. So like, are you willing to like face that, knowing that this could fail and not really caring about that sort of shame of shit, I'm 26 years old and I'm living in my parents' house again, and I've got a college degree and I'm, I think I was like 40 grand in debt. So I viewed it as one, yeah, I'd been broke before and it wasn't that bad. It sucked, but I was able to budget and, live pretty frugally for a while I needed to. And then I had parents who were willing to let me live rent free, which helped a lot. So the other piece is if you do fail, you got to take it as a learning lesson, right? So I view that first year of business as my master's degree. And even though I went into debt, like
Right.
it was the learning curve from going from corporate America to starting a business is really large, right? Like it's completely different. And you don't have systems, you don't have a consistent paycheck, you don't have any of that stuff, right? That's been built before you. You're kind of building from scratch in some ways. So can you view it as getting a master's degree and investing that? And then two, are you going to be okay if you fail? Because ultimately most businesses fail regardless, right? That's just a fact. I think it's because that learning curve, that learning curve is pretty high in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that kind of comes to mind is like, how do you bounce back from that, right? Obviously, whether it's 1 year or 2 years and you end up losing all of it, the temptation and there's that hero's journey, right? Where you get to the temptation of like, well, you know what, I've done all this, I thought this is what I wanted to do, it didn't work out, and then you tend to just give up and not even go to the next level of that journey and go back to what you used to do before. Because again, since that didn't give you the results you wanted and you ended up failing again, you just ended up not being able to bounce back. So how do you bounce back, or what was that driving factor to say, you know what, yeah, this is just a failure, yet it's a lesson? Because I think that's a big differentiator for many people, right?
Yeah, I don't know how other people bounce back. For me personally, it was I had gotten a taste of that freedom and adventure, and I love to travel. I love adventure. I went to Italy when I was 17. I went to Japan when I was 13. It's like that sort of risk and freedom has always been a part of my just personality and mantra. And so I didn't want to go work for anyone again. I just didn't want to. And I had a goal. I was like, hey, if I can make $3,000 a month online or through business, I'd be okay. Right. Like I could survive. I could pay rent. I could have a car. I could live frugally and either stay there or try and find ways to build it up. So that's kind of my mentality is like, once I had tasted it, I was always rebelling against authority, like growing up, like just never really liked being told what to do. And so I just didn't want to go back. I had such a fear of going back that I was like almost fearless of failing again in a way. It's really strange for me.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. One of my mentors mentioned, kind of what you're saying right now is like, once you have a taste of something that you really enjoy, that brings, this passion, this excitement, right? You definitely want more of that, right? And I think right. And so for me, part of the reason why I like to do networking events and go to those, seminars, whatever you people want to call them, is because it's not so much about, it's a lot about the person that I'm gonna go see, whether it's Tony Robbins or whoever that might be. Yeah, it's definitely learning from them. For me though, it's also more about who am I gonna meet there? Like, what are the connections? What kind of networking am I gonna be doing? Because you do learn from even the people that are there. Like some people are way ahead of you, and so I feel like, hey, you can learn from them. Some people are like the same level as you are, so hey, you can do some sort of joint ventures, or just do that networking. And then there's people that might be barely starting, yet it gives you an opportunity to go back and say, you know what, I can help you. Like I'm gonna reach down and help you come up to my own level, right? And so I think once you get a taste of that, it's like you never want to go back. And I for my own personal experience, have experienced many different things where I'm like, I want to keep doing this, even if it feels like and I don't know how it is for you, but a lot of people that have gone through this journey, and myself too, is like sometimes it can get lonely, right? And Les Brown says, when you're chasing your dreams, it gets lonely on the top because the bottom is overcrowded. And when you think about it from that perspective, it is true. That's that 5% versus a 95%, right? Mentality kind of thing. So anyways, it's not an easy journey. And so for you, although you had already tasted that, you said, I want to go back and do this. So is that how your company, the one you're doing right now, is that how that grew, or you had a couple of more setbacks or more lessons to learn, I guess?
Yeah, we ended up pivoting, right? So, or not pivoting, but parting. So we kind of dissolved our partnership, my friend and I, and he went on and did his own thing at his grandparents' house, and I ended up, living with my parents and doing my own thing. Luckily, we had some clients that wanted some alternative services that we hadn't offered before, which was email marketing. And I'd never done it before. They asked if I could do it. I was like, yeah, here's what it'll cost. And within a week, I just pulled together as much information I could on this service, wrote a bunch of copy, designed some stuff, implement it with them. I think I charged them like $500 for all of this, which I thought was great. I was like, shit, I could do this a couple times a month and make a decent income. And like one of their email flows ended up making like $20,000 a month. One of the things that I wrote and did, I was like, that's insane that I can see this and track it. And so I didn't necessarily go through a second hump. I got lucky in the sense that I identified a market that was starting to expand and grow from my failure before. And that sort of led to me hiring some freelancers. But the difference this time is actually I joined a mastermind, a business mastermind for agency owners. I'm still in it. I think it's been 2 or 3 years now. And one of the first things they have you do is dig down into your values and your mission. And so I spent like a week or 2 weeks not working on work, but digging into like, what is my mission? What are my values? Like, what do I want to see? Like, what kind of company do I want to create? And one of the things I missed while traveling was connection and community. So the travel lifestyle is pretty awesome, right? Like you're meeting new people, you're going to new places, and like you just get adrenaline and all these highs, but like you're not really building connections, and you're kind of just a consumer of the places that you visit versus a contributor. And for me, I decided I want to move back home. I want to move to Oregon. I want to build a local business, right, of people in the digital space, which there wasn't that many people at the time. Now it's huge, but I just want to do something local and have, a team that I could connect with and work with and help build them and grow companies. So the mission became, how can I help the local community by employing people and helping businesses, right? And the values were growth, entrepreneurial spirit, a scientific mindset, right? Honesty and compassion. And I think that really led to change, right? Because it became easy to recruit people that shared the vision, that saw that wanted to grow, and it became easier to acquire clients because they believed that you had their best interest in mind. And that still holds true today. Anyways, going back to the mastermind, that was a key piece for me. Is it kind of sounds fluffy, right? Like work on your values and your mission, but it's not, right? Like the auxiliary benefits you get from taking that deep work, like resonate years later in your business. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love that. I love the fact that you talk about a mastermind, and really love the idea of the mission, the values, and I think even as individuals, we should have our core values as a person, and then we should have our mission. Even if you're working your 9 to 5, even if you're employed right now, like what is your mission? What are your values? What are you, living up to? I always tell people that, we shouldn't be just here taking up space and taking on this oxygen. There's a bigger reason and purpose for us being here, and we need to be able to define that. And I like the idea of getting in tune with masterminds or seminars or events or networking, where you can define and or hopefully find that. The other thing that I really like about what you mentioned is that, yeah, you're going to all these places and you're meeting and yet you're not doing the connections. Instead of just being a consumer, being a contributor. Like, to me, that's very powerful. And I never seen it that way. And that is very true. Instead of just being a consumer, let me be a contributor to that aspect. You talk about, and you said that, probably perhaps by luck, you got lucky and you were able to not have that bigger downfall. My question to you is, do you really think you got lucky, or was it something different, right? Because, or I guess maybe the question for you is, how do you define luck? Do you believe in luck, or how do you define, being lucky?
Yeah, that's a good question. I kind of like I can't remember if it's Lincoln or Jefferson or Franklin. They always talk about how, like, you've got to be prepared for life. You've got to be in tune with what's going on. And then random events that are serendipitous will just happen. Right. And you have to be in tune to catch those events. So it is a combination, to me, of being prepared while these random events happen that are lucky, and I think that's the big key. And that may never happen for some people, right? You may never get lucky, but if you're preparing and doing things to grow yourself and getting in tune with an industry that you like and enjoy, I think the likelihood of something happening is going to be high. And you got to have some faith in that. You got to have some faith that the hard work you're putting in, is going to open doors.
Yeah. I don't know if it was Oprah or somebody mentioned that, and they said, somebody said that lucky or being luck is really when preparation meets opportunity, right?
Oh yeah.
And I forget who said that, but when I look at that, is actually very, very true, right? You're preparing yourself. You're going through some lessons. You fell down, you got up, and you learn from that, right? That's preparation. The opportunity is whatever's in front of you, and here's where a lot of people miss that. You might be falling down, and you keep falling down. I'm like, this is not working. This shit is not cutting it for me. Well, because opportunity is not gonna be in this nice, beautiful diamond shape type of aspect, right? It's hard to find it, yet it might be there, right? And I think that's where a lot of people miss that opportunity, because they feel like it's gonna be very nice and shiny when it is not the case, right?
And one thing on top of that is that first business that failed, that actually wasn't my first business. I actually tried starting one in Austin, and I started a gym, fitness class, an outdoor fitness class called Junkyard ATX. And that failed.
Oh, okay.
A completely different industry, but it's that just trying, just trying and trying.
Yeah. And I tell people that the only true failure is when you stop trying. If you're trying and you're failing, you're doing it right. You got to keep doing that. And if I go back and, I have a background in IT, and I started my career with, really doing computers. And I remember going to, back in the day, I would go to like computer job fairs in Pomona or different places, and I'll just buy all the different parts to build a tower, a computer. And I will sell the computers to people. And, obviously that, I did that for a couple of years, and it was giving me money, but not enough. So that business went down the drain. And then I tried doing a maintenance company, and I've done so many different things. And you're right. It's just looking back at everything you've done. Right. Yeah. So let's talk about your company. So you guys do marketing, and you're doing or e-commerce marketing, all that stuff. Tell me more about your company. How do you help entrepreneurs or business owners, or what is the dynamics of that?
Yeah. So right now we're a team of about 50 people, mostly in Oregon, and we've got a team of copywriters, designers, strategists, QA people, salespeople, things like that. And we essentially do what we call owned marketing, which is in the digital space, it's your email, your SMS, your content, things that you own as an individual, as a business. We work with a lot of companies, and we're basically 100% e-commerce. So anyone that sells things online is our focus. I just like that space, and I think it's creating a lot of opportunities for people. I think If you're not in it, you should check it out and see if it's something for you, because it's just so powerful and it's growing so fast. But what we say is, hey, like if you don't have an email list, if you don't have a phone number list or your own content, you're a rented business, right? You're renting space on Amazon, you're renting space on Instagram, you're renting space on Facebook, whatever channel you use. They could literally shut you off at any time for no reason, and you lose your entire customer base. In fact, that just happened to someone pretty close to me. She has a cooking club, and she had a really large Instagram following. And she texted me one morning. She's like, something terrible happened. I was like, what? Like, was there like a terrorist attack? She's like, my Instagram's been disabled.
Yeah.
She, thousands of followers, and that was her main source of income, is gone. And that's happened for a lot of companies with SEO. So when Google changes their SEO algorithm, the traffic drops to zero in some cases. So I always say, like, email is your owned marketing. It's a channel that you own. I think any business should consider having an email list, or should have one, to be honest, because you get to own that. You can email them whenever you want. You can nurture it. There's so many things you can do with it. But that's what we do, is we build what we call a full lifecycle email marketing system for them. That is a series of automated emails, campaign emails, email capture, things like that. And it's extremely powerful. It helps increase your profit. So not just your sales, but your profit. The reason being the cost to send more traffic to your site, right? It could be tens of thousands of dollars for, tens of thousands of more visitors. Whereas if you have an email list of 10,000 people versus 100,000 people, the cost to send is like $500 of a difference. So you reach more people at a fraction of the price, right? Especially over time. So it starts to raise your profit, and that can be reinvested into your front end channels. Or you'll actually start making money as a business owner, which is a lot of businesses have the problem not doing that, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So how do people, come to you, or what kind of people do you work with that want to work with you?
Yeah. So like I said, 100% e-commerce companies, but I think anyone can find value in email marketing and learning about it. My company's called worthecommerce.com, and you can find us there. You can check me out on LinkedIn. I've got a pretty big LinkedIn account and a podcast as well. So it's just Dean Dutro. But worthecommerce.com is the best way.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And I have a couple more questions before I let you go. You have something here that I think is pretty interesting. It must have been part of your journey, but I want to get more of that, because I think as you're trying to grow your business, and even just in life in general, I think this is so critical, and it's letting go of control, trusting in other people to handle the work so that you can scale. Can you elaborate more on that from your perspective?
Yeah, that was a learning curve for me, for sure. Right. And I think for a lot of people, especially if you're good at something and then trying to let other people do it, you kind of have to trust yourself to hire good people. I think that's a big key. I got really lucky. I came from literally a recruiting company. So one of my skill sets is hiring people and recruiting people. But it's always been a consistent battle for me to let go of the reins. And sometimes you let go and things go to shit, right? And you got to kind of put them back together, right? And that's just kind of the nature of it. I found that like every 5 people you hire, something's going to break, right? When I was at 5 people versus 10 versus now 50, every 5 people, some line of communication is different. Some new process needs to be built. You have a new position that's opening up you've never worked with before. So you kind of have to go just through trial and error in a lot of ways. But yeah, letting go, working on the business versus in the business is essential. I really only spend, maybe 3 or 4 days now on the business. I take Fridays off. I spend it with family, and that took a long time to get to. But I don't think it has to take that long. The biggest investment I made is I hired a project manager. That was the first big investment on salary. It was really expensive. And within 3 months of hiring that person, we doubled in size because they were doing the work that I was doing, and now we have, I think, 9 project managers, and
wow.
we've grown dramatically in size. So it's worth the risk if you can take it. The second best hire was a salesperson. Actually 2 salespeople. I always advise people, you should hire 2 salespeople because salespeople like to compete. one salesperson isn't enough, and they don't want to compete with the owner on sales.
Right.
That was a learning lesson for me. They'd be like, Dean, you're getting all the sales. I'm like, oh,
yeah. No, that's good. And I like that too. The idea of letting go of that control. And you're right. Once you allow that, you're probably thinking, well, nobody can do it as good as I do it. And perhaps maybe so. Nevertheless, though, at the end of the day, okay, there you go. And at the end of the day, though, you have the more of that time back where you can do other things that you can focus your time and energy on, right? But you're right. I mean, if you find if you go through that embedding process and you find the right dynamics on a person, they can probably do a better job than you do, right? But we as human beings, we're always thinking like, nobody's gonna do it better than I do, kind of thing.
Yeah, we're very overconfident, and I think knowing those values and attracting people with those values is key, right? Because there'll be some inherent trust, and then people are gonna mess up, like whatever. No, definitely. My last question for you is, anyone that's listening to our show and watching us right now, if they're going through any challenging time or some sort of challenge, whatever that might be, what is one advice that you can give them that they can start doing now to start overcoming that challenge? Breathe, take a breath. There's different types of challenges. And so you can't compare your challenges to someone else's challenges in a lot of ways, but, breathe, take a breath, and ask for help, whether it's through a mastermind, through a mentor or something like that. Like, asking for help, I think is hard for some people. It's hard for me, when I was first starting. So I'd say breathe and ask for help, like it's okay. I definitely love that. I've done a couple of months back, I was going through some stuff and I did some breath work and never done that. And it's very, very powerful. It definitely lets you, come to this point in that moment of life where you're just kind of focusing on what it is now, and lets you think. And it definitely brought a lot of emotions out of me that I didn't think I was going to do, but it worked pretty good. And so I definitely agree with that. And obviously asking for help, and, you're not alone in any of the things you're doing in your life. So that's awesome. Dean, anything else that you want to say before I let you go? No, this is an awesome show. I love the concept. There's two things I just want to mention. There's a really good book if you're interested in delegation and learning. It's called Who Not How. Which is all about kind of letting go of the reins, but focusing on the things you love to do, and then letting other great people focus on the things they love to do. So instead of figuring out how to do it, you figure out who's going to do it, right? Interesting concept. I actually learned about that on Bigger Pockets podcast.
Cool. Yeah.
And then the second piece is, if you are struggling, self-compassion goes a long ways. And the whole concept of taking a breath, realizing that things are tough right now, but also knowing that there's other people that are in your shoes or have been in your shoes, and to know that you're still doing a good job, telling yourself that, I think is really powerful.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Well, Dean, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate all of the knowledge you've brought to the show today. Thank you so much.
Thank you a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor, please make sure you check out Dean at LinkedIn or go to his website, and stay tuned at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.